I cover the hottest business lore, keeping you in the know.
They're not tuning into TV, and they're growing up with the likes of you telling them the news.
It's adapt or die. Legacy media isn't catching up. They don't know how. I have calls with some of the biggest news agencies and networks in the world, and they're trying to figure it out.
My hot take is that was 4 years too late. Social media is not about marketing anymore. It's about monetization.
There are the Bloombergs of the world, which are serious business.
Yeah.
There are lifestyle people, which lean very heavily into entertainment.
Yeah.
But I felt so strongly that there was this untapped need that wasn't getting met by other forms of media. I'd love to be the millennial version of a Barbara Walters.
They don't go to Instagram to shop. They don't go to Amazon to discover new products.
I was working at Amazon in body but not in spirit. If there was any one moment throughout my career that was this light bulb moment where I just knew I was onto something, it was that video.
Well, welcome to the Green Couch. My guest today is Sammi Cohen. She is the founder of Social Currency. We're extremely happy to have you today. You're the first professional podcaster we've had on the pod. So I've got a lot to learn from you, and I'm really excited to have you on.
Thank you so much. I am humbled by you saying that, and I'm so excited to be here.
Amazing. Well, welcome to the Green Couch. It's become quite and I remember watching a podcast and you were giving some advice about, do something in your background that's rememberable. So today it's the Green Couch for us. But today what I'd like to do is just start to where it all began and how you got to Social Currency.
Ooh, okay. So I am originally from the East Coast. I grew up in Westchester, New York. And I ended up going to USC for undergrad. And at the time, I majored in communications, and I was always very business-minded. Mm-hmm. And like many people in college, I went into an internship, and I worked for a movie production company.
Wow.
And this is between my sophomore year and junior year. And I realized literally one day in, I had someone who worked at the company who wasn't a super high level person, kind of mid-tier at the company, who pulled me aside, once again, this is like one of my first few days there. And he's like, "Do you really want to be here?" And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And he's like, "How badly do you want to be here?" I'm like, "Well, this is early days of my internship. I'm really interested in this industry." And he's like, "Are you so excited about being here that you're willing to take a very little salary, work on projects for years at a time that may not actually end up turning into something?" And essentially trying to talk me out of being there. Yep. Because the theory or his position was that really the only people that should be working here and want to pursue this industry long term are the ones that are so obsessed with it that they can't picture themselves doing anything
There's
else.
No plan B.
Exactly. And I went home after that day of the internship, and I literally remember calling my mom saying, "I actually don't think I want to be in this industry anymore."
What a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
I mean, we should do that with everything we do. Do you really want to do this? Do you really want to, we waste so much time in our lives making decisions on doing things we probably shouldn't be doing. Do you really want to go have dinner with these people tonight?
Yes. Yeah, you can apply that to pretty much any element of your life. Yeah. But for me, I think that was the first instance where, I had this opportunity to really assess what I was doing. And especially when you're in college, you have your whole life ahead of you. And it actually opened up my mindset around really thinking critically about how I spend my time and putting the pieces in place so that I could pursue something that I was perhaps more passionate about. Because at the end of the day, it was an internship. I was interested in the industry, but I think I realized the level of dedication that you need in order to really turn this into a career and a successful one at that.
Yep.
I wasn't that into it. And so I went back to the drawing board, and I was more interested in general business. And at the time, I had always been, even from a young kid, obsessed with CPG, right? Mm-hmm. Anything that's tangible that you can touch. Mm-hmm. Anything from makeup to food. And I ended up going to a company called Aldi, which is this big German grocer. Yeah. And at the time, they didn't exist anywhere west of Texas. So the whole plan was I was going to go to their headquarters in Batavia, Illinois. It's literally this hour outside of Chicago with cornfields all around.
Oh my God.
And granted, at this point in my life, I'd only lived in New York and LA. And I go to Batavia, Illinois, and I learn how to run a grocery store. And their program is phenomenal in that they literally start you inside of the grocery store. They say you're going to spend your first few months as a store associate, and you're going to come in at 5 a.m. when the other employees are opening the store. You're going to stay till 11 p.m. to close the store. You're going to stock the shelves, especially if you know anything about Aldi. And for the listeners, it's kind of, if you've never been into an Aldi, people kind of refer to it as a cousin of Trader Joe's. So it's all private label. And the employees there do everything. It's not like you have a bakery and you have a meat area. It's the employees at the store are responsible for everything. And so you're literally running around the entire day. And so you work your way up through the ranks, and you go from associate to shift manager to store manager, and then eventually district manager where you manage the stores. And so having that experience at age 21, having literally hundreds of employees that report up to you, it was the best on the ground learning that
an MBA, basically.
It was. And ironically, I went from there to an MBA program, which I have a lot of takes on getting an MBA now, but I ended up going to Berkeley after that because I wanted more. At that point, I loved the business world and I wanted to get more of an understanding of the finance side of it. So I ended up going to UC Berkeley, the Haas School of Business, was there for 2 years. So I was there for 2 years in the Bay Area. While I was there, two things happened. I went into school wanting to have an idea for a company that I could then run with. And so I started this matcha company. And that's a whole saga and could be its own podcast on its own. But the whole gist of it was a matcha concentrate. So it's matcha, it's the matcha powder with liquid. And the form factor was that way because I was selling into these fast casual restaurants like the Paneras of the world. And grew that. COVID happened, the business, because I was going B2B, completely shut down. And I had spent my time thinking that's what I was going to do. And at that point, I realized, okay, I need to get an actual job to pay the bills once I graduate. So then I went to Amazon. I worked in Amazon logistics and luxury fashion.
Was that in San Francisco?
And so I had moved down to LA at that point because they have an office in Santa Monica.
That's right.
And during COVID, this is 2022, I was in Amazon logistics at that point and feeling so creatively drained that I really felt the need to do something more creative and less analytical, but still using my business mindset. And then my first video went up on TikTok and it's been a ride since then.
So when was that first video?
It was March of 2022.
Amazing. So talk to me a little bit about the growth of your channels and how you think about it, because obviously when someone logs in today, they see 200,000 plus subscribers on Instagram, and it's growing very quickly. How did that grow over the last couple of years? Was there a moment that it was slowly and then it started to rocket ship? Yeah.
So when I started, I had this hypothesis, right? Because there are the Bloombergs of the world, which are serious business. There are lifestyle people, which lean very heavily into entertainment. But I felt so strongly that there was this untapped need that wasn't getting met by other forms of media. And I thought, okay, I have the business acumen and background to be able to talk to these stories that are trending topics in the news, or maybe past events that people have heard about but can go a little bit further below the surface. And I can put an entertaining spin because I knew that that's the type of content that I wanted to see, but it wasn't really there. So my first video was actually on Sophia Amoruso from Nasty Gal and talked about the rise and fall. And really, I think within the first few weeks on TikTok, because I wasn't posting on Reels yet, one of my videos went viral at the time. And it was a story on Tracy Romulus, who is in Kim Kardashian's circle, who has been a key part of her marketing on Skims and some of the other companies. And that was the moment that clicked for me, where people really want the blending of those two things.
So interesting.
The culture and the business.
That's right.
But to answer your question, no, the path was far from linear, because then I got a little distracted. I was getting married. I'd just gotten engaged. I was getting married, and then
that old curveball.
Just like anything, and this will probably tell you a little bit about my personality. I get hyper fixated on things.
Yeah.
And because so much of my life at that point was planning for the wedding, I was like, why don't I cover the business of weddings and talking about the most expensive and glamorous wedding venues around the world? And like, so if you go way back on my TikTok,
I'm going to do that.
There was a wedding era. There were all these different eras. And then the moment that really changed things was, this is going back to last year, so 2024. In the summer, I came out with a video on outdoor voices. And at that point, the company had been, I mean, it's still around today, and Ty actually came back to the company. But at that point, the status of it was that it had been bought by private equity and was kind of this like dead in the water company.
That's right.
And I just talked about this rise and fall, almost like the arc of the girl boss and what happened and why there was this company that was so beloved and what happened to it. And that video did extremely well. And that was truly, if there was any one moment throughout my career that was this light bulb moment where like, I just knew I was onto something, it was that video.
That's so crazy. What do you think about that video sparked?
I think it was a mix of things. I think it was the confluence of the pop culture element of, there were so many parts of it, right? There was the beloved brand that people were obsessed with that seemingly over the span of 1 or 2 years disappeared.
Yeah.
And it was just so much a part of our culture, and it was written up by the New York Times, and there were the iconic royal blue hats that said doing things, and Ty would go on walks all over these cities across the US, and hundreds or thousands of people would show up just to go on walks and spend time and have these recreational activities. And I think there was such a strong movement around it that she was really able to, and she still does to this day, but capture this sentiment amongst specifically young women to really get together and I think just that element, and then also the business part. I think it surprised people, and I found that in my content as I've grown and as I've explored all of these different types of business stories, the one element that I always think about before I post a video is there a surprise factor or something unexpected? Because that is what then encourages people to share it to their friends or family and save it, right? Because they're like, wow, that was not what I expected. It's not enough to just deliver information, but to have that entertainment and the surprise is really necessary.
I think one thing you do well is you have your own personal take on it. And I love that you always interject, because you're right, everyone can get the news everywhere. And when you see, like, you know, you've got Page Six and you've got CNBC with Maria Bartiromo, and then you've got Bloomberg, I think there's something that alienates the audience. And you know, we always talk about, you know, how do you build your audiences? And traditional media has always separated the audience by virtue of, you know, the brand itself. And I think what excites me about what you're doing is that this new generation who are receiving all their information on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, they're not tuning into TV, and they're growing up with the likes of you telling them the news. It has to be something that's entertaining, because the algorithm picks up the entertainment factor, not just because you're going live at 7 p.m. and talking about what's happening to the S&P today. I also like the fact that, you know, you break down the stories in little like nuggets. So it's, you know, you're waiting for the next one as well. And I think that's really, really great, because then you get that little pop every single time as well. But I think, you know, with Outdoor Voices, that piece which you did, which I also did watch, I think there's, you know, people also want to be relatable to other people too. They want to understand that it's okay that people have failed and come back. People want to see, you know, the Phoenix rising, the comeback kid, and, you know, the whole Nasty Girl incident. You know, people also like to see brands peak and come down as well. It's a cruel society, but I think that's really interesting. Your audience now, when you think about your audience, because I think the way you've talked to me today, it sounds like you're building for yourself. And I'm sure it's not, you know, 250,000 people of yourself watching. Who do you think your audience is now?
I can kind of answer this in a few ways. But first, from the analytics side, my audience is primarily, so 40% of my audience is ages 25 to 34. 38% is ages 35 to 44. So it's really, and 80% of that is women.
Wow.
So it's women anywhere from 25 to 45. That's really my core demo.
Wow.
And most of my listeners are New York, LA, San Francisco, Chicago.
Any outside of the US?
Yes, I'd say so. Right now, my audience is 65% US, and then it's Canada, UK, Australia.
Usual.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think what's really fun about my content is that I think there are almost a few different pillars of people who listen to my content and they get something different out of it. So I think on one hand, there are the people who, like we've been talking about, they see me as another way to feel in the know. And that's like one of my catchphrases. It's like, I cover the hottest business lore, keeping you in the know, right? So I think there's that. And going back to what you said, it's like that generation, my core target demo, they're not necessarily turning on CNN to get the news. And they don't want to.
They don't want to.
If you look at the statistics of the people that are getting their news today, where they're getting it from, they're getting it from social media.
Yeah, 100%.
And so you have to, it's adapt or die. You have to, if you are a creator and you want to be in this, it's called edutainment, like education and entertainment space, you have to find a way to come to your audience serving both. And I think there is so much opportunity. Like, I am a full believer that I will not be the only person to be successful in this space. This is a massive opportunity because legacy media isn't catching up. They don't know how. I have calls with some of the biggest news agencies and networks in the world, and they're trying to figure it out.
It's crazy because it should be quite obvious.
Yeah.
Like, if you take a step back and, we see that there's 4 billion people on YouTube and TikTok, and everyone's still trying to get them onto their streaming channels on TV to watch something that they don't really care about. And they're saying, well, maybe if we, bundle a bunch of these shows together, people will go back to the TV. They're not on it. They're on their phones. They're watching it in vertical formats. They're swiping up if they're bored, and they'll go into the next thing. And it's that consumer behavior that gets me so excited, because if we believe that, the creator economy, which covers a whole plethora of sizes, large and small audiences. But if you look at them together, these are the distribution channels. And I really believe marketing in social media is not about marketing anymore. It's about monetization and how brands can get really in front of the consumer and see real attribution. So I really believe like the entertainment side of the business, like we're all media channels at the end of the day. We're all building entertainment, whether it's, scripted or unscripted. But brands are still playing in the past where they're saying, well, come to the shelf, we'll have someone show you, the product. But discoverability is all happening on your phone. Where, I was living in China for a couple of years, and that's where I got addicted to, social commerce and how watching these influencers, drive so much volume of content and product sales. But I really think that if we can think about the universe of, the big creators who are let's talk about what you do in talking about business and affairs. Those, I think, are such great opportunities because it's repeatable content. Mm-hmm. There's something every single day. Yes. And that's why sports does so well, because it gets such high viewership. So when I look at biggest opportunities in media, it's what you do, it's sports, and it's repeatable content. Mm-hmm. It's like the daily shows. What's replicating the daily shows? Well, they're canceling them now, but what's going to fill that gap? Mm-hmm. If you're telling me that I can come and watch Sammi Cohen talks and social currency, and I'm going to get my 2 minutes of the news every single day, I'm hooked.
Totally. And I completely agree. I think the value propositions of what people in this new media, whatever we're calling this new media space now, I think those value propositions are never going away. People will always want to be entertained. And when it comes to news, business news, people have asked me this before. They've said, like, do you ever worry that you're going to run out of content? And I'm like, girl, honey, never.
So much.
That's not possible. In fact, I have people on my team who help to kind of serve up like trending topics of the day, right? And it's so hard for me to choose what I'm going to talk about because I have a limited bandwidth. I have an hour and a half to get this video done. And it's like, I have to choose from these 3 or 4 topics. I want to talk about all of them. Yeah. Okay, so I'll push the second choice to tomorrow. But then guess what? Tomorrow, an even better story comes out.
I know. I mean, there's so much to go through because I read the news every day, and my religion is almost to go through all the different newspapers and read through it. We were trained to read The Economist from cover to cover, the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal. But now there's like so much information. But I think it's hard to get people's opinion on the story as well, which is why I like, especially with CPG and media, technology and entertainment. That is so exciting because the media industry, despite what's happened in Hollywood, I think it's being rebuilt on this new era. Mm-hmm. And I really love the way that, entertainment costs are coming down. So the likes of ourselves, we can go and put these podcasts out and meet new people and put yourself out there. So it's exciting. I wanted to ask you about your team because now you're, it's a business now. You're running a real business. Like, how do you think about your team and what you needed to build this business now?
Yeah. So I ended up leaving my full-time job at Amazon in June, which is wild because I have been working
this last June,
like a few months ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I was working at Amazon in body, but not in spirit. Like I was physically in the chair.
Do you really want to be here?
Yeah, exactly. I was like checked out. Pretty much the only reason why I stayed that long is at all of these big tech companies, they give you these RSUs on a vesting schedule. And I quit the day after my last really big one. And I was like, all right, bye-bye. But it was at the point where I would go to these offsites for Amazon and I would have people within the larger organization. Obviously, Amazon's one of the biggest companies in the world, and there would be hundreds of people at these offsites. And I would have people that I didn't know be like, I love your channel. And I'm like, not here. Like, we're not going to talk about it here.
Oh my God.
Because it was always a gray area for me. But anyway, that's an aside. So I left in June and I knew right away that I was really excited about scaling this. So right now how it works is there are a few different pillars, but right now the two main ones are the social channels, which we've been talking about, that's posting short form across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and also LinkedIn.
Yep.
And then there's the podcast called Social Currency, where I'm talking to founders, CEOs like yourself, and then also doing a slightly longer form dive on the short forms.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So if a video does really well, what I'll do is I'll go back to the prior week, look at the video that did the best, and then I do a longer form version on it. Because for short form, anything on my Instagram, I'm generally not going to go over 2 minutes. If I do, it's like there's a very specific reason why I'm doing that. There's like a part of the story I can't leave out. But then the actual podcasts are still relatively short form, but it's like 10, 15 minutes. But that's just enough to be able to cover it in greater detail where people are still incentivized to listen to the full thing.
Amazing.
And so for both of those, I have a small army of freelance contractors. And then there's different things that are kind of off of the side of that. So I have a newsletter as well, a few different like media assets. But I'd say for really the biggest thing in terms of bandwidth, of course, you run a podcast, you know how important the editing is, all that stuff. So I have my editing teams for the podcast. And then for short form, really the biggest thing for me is finding the content because I'm not a lifestyle influencer. I'm not necessarily going to walk you through my get ready with me routine. I mean, not to say it'll happen from time to time, but that's not my bread and butter. And so the biggest differentiation on whether a video does really well or not, what I've come to learn is how good the story is. And there's nothing I love more than a good story. It's just, I get this spidey sense now because I've been doing this every single day or most days of the past few years. I can tell when something is going to resonate with people. And it has this confluence of a company that people generally know. And maybe that company that people know that may not be the protagonist, but it's a side player. Because you kind of have to hook people with, just like when you're doing green screen, if you have a celebrity behind you in a green screen, people are going to stop and watch. It doesn't really matter what you're saying. But there's the familiarity. There's the, oh my gosh, I know that person. I want to learn more. And so having a recognizable brand is big. Having some degree of, as I said before, surprise, something unexpected, or scandal. People love a scandal. And they also love the rise and fall. People love to watch a train crash, car crash. And I try to not make my content too much of that, but it's also something that does
really well.
Organically does so well.
Because people, you're right, the measure of good content is people willing to share it and share it to other people. And you can see one of your posts that goes viral and people are constantly sharing it.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting. I mean, obviously you want to be caught on the good side. But talk to me about some things that are going on right now that you're excited about. Is there anything you would like to talk about, like in the CPG space, or companies that you think potentially are about to fall over or roll over?
Oh my gosh.
I would love to hear your take on some things.
Yes. There's so many. I could probably talk to you for hours about this, but top of mind ones. Yeah. So the company that I'm watching, I've done a few videos on Saks. Saks, the retailer. I think what's fascinating about Saks is from the financial side, there's been an absolute dumpster fire that's been happening because the private equity firm behind them has financed the Saks Neiman's merger.
Yes.
And they took out quite literally billions of dollars worth of bonds. Those bonds have headed south.
Yeah.
And now what you have is a situation where there's a company who is just losing steam on revenue.
Yeah.
They are not doing well. And from financials that come out, it's like year over year, they're declining. And you have the underlying economic infrastructure, which is so faulty. It's about to just implode. And I think that's why I love these types of stories, because people, especially when it comes to Saks, Saks is an American retailer that is so iconic, and people have all of these nostalgic memories of going shopping there around the holidays and looking at the beautiful window treatments around Christmas. And I think for me, I love talking about a story, and it is very sad. I'm not rooting for their demise at all, but I think what I really think is important is to talk about what happens financially when companies get acquired, when these implosions happen, because people oftentimes they read the headlines and they don't really know the why behind it.
That's what I think has happened also, like in the music industry.
Yeah.
Like no one really talks about like what happens when, I mean, now that the big stars, you hear about what's going on with them, but it's such a mafia in terms of like Ticketmaster, the record deals that these musicians get, what shakes out at the end, and social media is giving everyone a platform to talk about it. But just going back to Saks, I find that really interesting because we all came from and lived through this e-commerce wave where everyone thought that the destruction of physical retail would happen because of e-commerce, and things take time. And then Amazon came along, and then all different types of developments in technology help people buy products. But I think what was interesting was when they did the merger with Neiman Marcus and Saks. The private equity, why did they do it? Well, they thought it was an iconic asset. People would still come. It's got some inherent value, and they would have to underwrite that debt to some value. And that value was either rent or, sales or products. But then what happened was interest rates spiked, and then, everyone has to service a debt, not 3% anymore. It's probably 8 to 10%. And that's a lot when you're doing billions and billions of dollars. What was interesting was I remember Amazon ended up doing a deal with them. So I think you may have an inside track in there. So I'm curious why that deal happened between Amazon and Saks. Was it because there was a need for that luxury customer on Amazon? Yeah.
And so as I mentioned earlier in my kind of rundown of the resume, I worked at luxury stores within Amazon. That was a brief stop because once I got to Amazon luxury stores, I realized how much of a sinking ship it was. But yeah, I think and I was not at the point where I was in the rooms when that decision was being made. I think I'd gone back to logistics at that point. But yes, Amazon, and this is all what I'm sharing. Everyone is public information. I'm not giving away any, this can all be observed as an outsider, everything I'm about to say. Amazon has not cracked the luxury consumer fundamentally, right? With luxury stores, if you go on to the luxury store site, which is a walled garden experience, you have to go separately from just, the same part of the site where you're shopping for toilet paper. But they have wanted to get the tier 1 luxury customer, right? They wanted to have the Gucci's and the Pradas on the platform. Inherently, those companies don't really have a ton of excitement about going onto that
Amazon,
site. Yeah,
you
because
could almost picture the CMOs like,
yeah.
Are you kidding me? Yeah.
And Amazon has way more to gain from that arrangement at this point. And you saw this happen over the early days of the pandemic when all of these luxury houses really leaned into developing their own e-commerce channels.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but such a large percentage of the e-com that's dedicated to these houses goes directly through them. And so you're seeing this massive shift happen across e-commerce where previously the Saks.com of the world would have owned that, and now it's going straight to the brands.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that in Net-a-Porter. We saw that in Matches.com. I forget the other ones. And there's, I think My Teresa is probably the only one that survived that kind of dismantling. But it's interesting because I always have this belief, like when you develop a platform, whether it's social media or it's a marketplace, people know the reason why they go there. They don't go to Instagram to shop. They don't go to Amazon to discover new products. They know what they're already thinking about when they purchase a product there. And to bring like Gucci and Balenciaga to Amazon, it was never going to really work. And it's funny because when I was in China, I saw something similar where they tried to, I forget which company it was. I think it was JD.com bought Farfetch. And that was a disaster because they couldn't get the luxury brands on. But now it's, we're watching what I would term like something's happening right now in e-commerce. And I owe a lot of the changes to what's happening with YouTube and TikTok. So the algorithms are now favoring entertainment. And if you're a CMO, you better know what you're doing, because if you're not spending appropriately in the right channels or being able to surface your content in the right platforms, you're starting to see market share erode from you. So one of the things I'm really interested in, want to get your take on, is that athleisure market. When Lululemon started to turn, we have all these companies with massive valuations, Viore, Alo Yoga. We've started to see Alo Yoga. I woke up Sunset just down the road from here, and they're selling a $3,000 bag now. And I'm like, hold on a second. And then we're starting to see brands appear on TikTok. One called Halara that's doing close to $100 million on TikTok. Same sheer, stockings and athleisure wear. I was curious to see, and obviously Skims is out there too. And we're starting to see, stranger and stranger innovations and products coming from these companies. Like I saw Skims was doing like a face mask that looks like a bandage. And then I see Alo Yoga doing a $3,000 bag. Yeah. What is going on in this market?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the shock value, Alo put out that bag because they knew they were going to get just all of this organic media over it. And so I think that there's also this element that is very close to what we're talking about, where it's the upscaling or the luxuryification of everyday goods, right? And I think with Alo is positioned in such a way that it's still accessible. It's premium, but it's accessible. And I think that we're starting to see so many brands that are trying to come out with these items that are moving them further up market. And granted, I still believe that bag from Alo was a shock value item, but I think brands today realize the power of media and of getting I believe so much of what shifts media and really allows for something to go from a non-viral product to a viral product is what happens in the comments. So if you can get something that's truly remarkable, and taking the word remark, like getting people to talk about it. And what's a very easy way to get people to talk about it? Charge something outrageous for an item that really should be like that $3,000 bag. Like that should be in the same price lineup as their existing products, right?
Exactly.
So I think that's my take on why that happened. But I think shock value is big. And have you heard about the Skims bush thong?
What is that? I'm scared to ask.
No, you should be scared. And this is literally the perfect example of putting a product out just for the remarks that you're going to get in the comments. So it's literally, and you should, after this, and everyone who hasn't listened or seen this ad, go on Instagram, or I'm sure it's on YouTube now, and check it out. But it's a thong that the whole play on it is like, you can decide the color of your bush. So if you have brown hair, you can have a red bush now. You can have a blonde bush.
Oh my God.
Going to the comments, once again, the comments are the best place, but people are like, I checked the date and I had to make sure that it wasn't April Fool's Day because what the fuck?
Oh my
like,
God.
what's going on? And I think obviously that's outrageous, but that's probably like the best example in 2025 of a company putting something out there just to
stay relevant and aware.
Yes. They sold out, but when companies say that they sell out, you don't know what that means. You literally can have 5 units. The sellout means nothing. It's a marketing tactic.
It means so nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it really does. I mean, there's so many like things that people can do to do sellouts as well. I mean, when we used to do live streams in China, we were live streaming products and, they would sell accordingly to the press, like $1 billion that day. I'm like, yeah.
I'm fascinated though with the TikTok shop of it all and how you're seeing these breakout brands that were challenger brands that are really coming in and starting to eat the lunch of the legacy brands.
Well, I mean, that's very, central to my heart right now because we've lived through that in Asia in the last 5 years. And I keep talking about this 4-year playbook, which I believe China is 4 years exactly ahead of us. Europe's 2 years behind the US.
So I need to hear about this 4-year playbook.
So I always believe in patterns and analogs and recognition. And, sometimes you see something and you get that PTSD and like, oh my God, I saw something like this, years and years ago. Or I saw the setup in the markets where, it was very, very quiet and volatility. And all of a sudden we had these breakout moves in commodities. And I think when I was in China, I learned very quickly that, the way that they operate, they're so efficient and then the ability they can take an idea and then run with it in China. And I really believe that in China, there was this, bifurcation in brands where you had these incredible Western brands like Drunk Elephant that came into the markets and they all came in, and then all these local brands who weren't good at branding were saying, well, why can they take so much market share from us? So these challenger brands learned very quickly how to create and emulate the incumbents. And what happened was we had, over the last 4 years, the rise of the local brands that were born out of TikTok. And what I'm seeing right now in the US right now is so similar to what I saw in China. And I can't get more excited about it. Because what does that mean? That means that, guard your loins because there's going to be a lot of battle. And what that means is, how do you make yourself relevant to the new consumer on these channels, whether it's TikTok and YouTube? Where we spend a lot of our time as a company now is working with creators at scale who are affiliates. So an affiliate is someone with more than 5,000 followers on TikTok. We have 1.5 million that work directly with Superordinary. So we're constantly sending them products and getting them and really getting them to talk about the product at hand. But what's the big opportunity is if the two of us said, you know what, let's make a supplement brand. Let's look at, I don't know, Grun's gummy bears, and let's go out and let's make our version of that and make it for a third of the price and, do a different version. There's a very high success chance that we can win and take market share. Whereas before that would be impossible. So we don't care about the number of followers you have anymore on Instagram. It's about how much awareness we can create by using the algorithm to surface there. So I think that you could do that across beauty, fashion, athleisure wear. And I think the big brands now who are doing hundreds of millions of revenue here in the US, they're going to have to watch out because this is naturally what's going to happen. And I think if that happens, we're going to see hundreds of new brands coming around the corner. So I'm very curious, like what will happen to some of these big brands that are doing multi-billion-dollar valuations.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a window that they could have sold, and I think we may see it on social currency one day that they've missed the window.
Yes.
And
So I have one follow-up question because I'm fascinated by this topic. I could talk to you about this for so long. But when we're talking about, you brought up like a Grun's competitor, just as an example. Is this a almost like a commodity situation where the lowest price wins then? Or on TikTok Shop then, what are those brands that are the challenger brands that are taking market share? What are they doing besides the price play?
Obviously, the dupe culture is very alive and well, and people are seeing that in fragrances and other commodities as well. I think that what's the consumer's looking for is, if you think about a brand's life cycle, obviously Gucci's, the Balenciagas of this world, they can live forever because they've standed the test of time so far. I think there's a rise and the fall, and the brand life cycles are getting shorter and shorter. And as a brand founder, you have to realize that, what your brand is being built on may not last that long, because there is the opportunity for people to disrupt. For generally it's price, and then it's innovation. I think quick innovation is very, very important for the new consumer, because they've got ADHD with everything, content, product, you name it. You could be thinking about buying this and then you want to buy that, or go here, go there. So I believe that theme of creating brands that are innovative, have value is very important. And I think you need to get the economics of your product correct. What I mean by that is, before, you would go and make a product for 20 cents, you go sell it to Sephora for 40 cents, and they'll sell it to the consumer for $1. That's gone out the window, because you have to now pay an affiliate who's selling your product and talking about your product and doing the job for you 20 cents. You have to pay the platform 10 cents, and then you have to pay your staff and everything else, and plus service providers. And your margins are unfortunately getting smaller, but that margin compression is forcing traditional players out of the market. So if you're an LVMH that's been used to making 30% net margins, all of a sudden your margin profile's got a lot tighter. So I think that's what we've seen with Kering. We've seen that with LVMH. We've seen that with L'Oreal, Estée Lauder. Everything has come down, and it's not because people are not buying luxury. It's because the economics of selling products has changed, and no one's addressing that. And I actually think that's really exciting to understand, because the traditional decision makers who have been creating these products haven't really talked about it. But it's the underlying current of what's happening in the market right now. Because if you look at TikTok Shop, it's not going to be long until we're going to be doing $50 billion in the US.
Wow.
If you think about that for a second, like, that dollars has to come from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's going to come from the Neimans, the Saks, the Sephoras, the Ultas. The consumer doesn't care.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. The level of disruption we're about to see across all of retail.
All of retail.
And so when we're talking about, the Sephoras of the world, right? I'm really curious to dive into their financials and see what's going on.
It's public, right?
Yeah.
I think, obviously we had the Road launch with Elf buying that. And I think what is Sephora? It's a multi-brand store. They have their own white label products, but they also have the ability to introduce discoverability. It gives, the consumer a place to discover products and enter, this new world.
And they actually just launched, I'm remembering, they launched their own affiliate site too.
I know, a little too late in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think, my hot take is that was 4 years too late. They should have been thinking about that as arming their brand ambassadors earlier. The issue I think they will have is that, when a consumer buys a product through an affiliate, they're going through entertainment first. How do they find the Sephora affiliate link? Well, it's in a link in bio on your Instagram. How many clicks through do I have to go and find it, and then go to a Sephora website to purchase? Whereas it's like ChatGPT, everyone's talking about agentic commerce and how people are going to buy products through there and have agents that go and do their purchase. I think as humans, we do enjoy shopping. It's the discoverability. I can't imagine, anyone in my family telling an agent, go buy me a pair of shoes and trusting that. But I think there's something to be said about, how, and I think social commerce, like social currency, is like, how do you discover? That's what we live for. It's so important to find new things. So I'm excited to see what happens in this space, because I think it's the one thing that most people don't talk about is what's happening in e-commerce and social commerce these days. Everyone thinks that they're similar, but it's polar opposites almost.
Yeah. I think you're spot on with this whole entertainment, and entertainment is, it's almost like the marketing funnel, right? Like you need to catch them with the entertainment. And then as you kind of hook a potential customer and they get down the funnel, and it's like that final or the second step before the actual purchase decision is like the link in bio. And then it takes them, it's fascinating. Just the life cycle and decision process for e-commerce is just, it's changing.
It's changing, yeah. It's really changing. And I think, also it's global too. So I think what you're building, this is what I'm excited for you, is your audiences are going to be, it must be extremely loyal. They're coming back to watch you every day. And at the end of the day, like, people will see your audience and can dissect and say, this many people from Australia, this many from the UK, what can we be selling through these channels now? So question to you is, okay, with your business, where would you like it to be in 5 years' time? I know that's a lifetime away. I don't know where I'm going to be in 3 months, let alone a year or 5 years. But what do you think, like, I'm sure you've thought about this a lot, like, where do you think the media business is going? Do you see yourself, working at because there's a big chance that, a big network was going to say, well, gobble you up and now you're the face, like, some of these other platforms out there. What do you think?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you my crazy delusional 5-year plan.
I love it.
And that's like up here. And then the reality is probably going to be somewhere in the middle from like me saying something super basic, which is like, just keep doing what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, my crazy plan, it fits really well into what we've been talking about. But I very much believe as production costs for any type of visual medium are falling so dramatically year over year, we're seeing this move of production going to the individual creator. And so I think, as we've been talking about, these legacy traditional media forms are no longer, they'll still be around, but they're going to get increasingly less relevant. And so my crazy 5-year goal is to actually have my own version of a network / whatever the new form of TV channel is. I don't know if that's going to be just a really built out version of a daily show that maybe, because YouTube is the distribution channel, YouTube is the new version of television, maybe that lives on YouTube. But I do really want to turn what I'm doing now into the equivalent of watching 60 Minutes or something that's going to give you a breakdown, except this is going to be my version of it, Social Currency's version of it. And I also would love to, and this is once again delusional, but I'm a millennial. I'd love to be the millennial version of a Barbara Walters. Yeah. I think that when you're looking at creators and media figures, you have so many people who existed in prior generations who were really good at dissecting both business and lifestyle. And then you have kind of this gap right now where people my age, I don't think that there's a singular figure who's able to, and granted, nowadays there shouldn't be a singular figure. There will be many just because of the way that social media works, but I'd love to be one of those figures who is reputationally very sound, solid, trusted, and is also able to ask the critical questions. I think my X factor in what I've built is that people come to my page, they know it's going to be no bullshit. Like I'm going to talk about what companies are not doing right. 100%. And I'm going to give my take. And oftentimes the take is critical because I'm just going to share my honest opinions. Yeah. And I think that's why people do continue to consume my content, because this isn't a fluff piece. They know that. Yeah,
you've got no dog in the race here.
Yeah. And so
it's actually nice.
Yeah, I've had people ask like, oh, do you want to start a venture fund? Or do you want to, because you're, constantly talking about all of that. Never say never, but I actually like the fact that I have complete objectiveness.
You're agnostic. You really are. Yeah, I mean, the good and the. I love that. First of all, I don't think your 5-year plan is out of reach at all. I think you're underselling yourself. You can really go for this. I think there's such an opportunity because I think people do want to listen, and it's scary that we can't even put on one hand name resources we can go to. There's Prof G Markets with Scott Galloway and Ed Elson. I mean, that's getting a lot of awareness. And to be honest, like there needs to be more that's, we can't just talk about AI all the time.
Yeah.
And which I feel like we just delivered just this AI slop of what's going on with NVIDIA and OpenAI and ChatGPT. It's like there's so much more that people want to learn about building businesses. And I think, bringing people onto your show that, are struggling, but also building great companies. And there's so many great founders out there too. But I think there's, these big topics about watching these big companies being, disintermediated now. That could be a third of all your content.
I know.
I mean, there's so much. I mean, I just, obviously I just keep watching about what's going on with whether it's airline industry or the car industry or it's the retail. I mean, you walk through LA, it's like a ghost town these days.
I know.
mean, like you've grown up here over the last couple of years. I mean, it's changed so dramatically. There's no restaurants anymore. They're all shutting down.
Yeah.
Retail's like, if I see another J Lux sign on
Speaking of that, I want to do a deep dive on J Lux and that business model. Like, what is going on?
Let's do it. Let's do an investigative, what's behind this? But there's so much to learn. But I'm really excited for you, and thank you so much for coming on the pod today.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun. I feel like I could literally talk to you for 8 hours.
Oh, well, let's do it. I mean, well, I'm going to come onto your pod. I think we'll do that. But before I go, I've got something for you. I know you're a Swiftie. So this is something we give to all our guests.
Oh my God. Okay, guys.
It's not the new album. But
Wait, no, this is amazing. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. I'm literally going to this is going to be on display in my house.
Well, it's funny. I'll tell you a stat. 60% of people who have vinyls don't have a vinyl player. And people, that's a whole, another topic is the music industry.
Yeah.
And I've been learning a lot about it. My twin brother's really into it. So he's got a vinyl company. And, but it's really interesting because the whole music industry is, I think, on the verge of massive changes there.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's great.